الله تعالى وبركاته. So today is the second episode of the Twilight chat, in which we, as I said in the previous episode, we'll just look into some of the verses of the Quran, and in each and every episode we'll look into specific verse or verses, collection of verses probably, that's just to make a connection between them. So as I said, we last in the previous episode we looked into Surah Al-Fatiha and some of the ayahs within it. Today we'll be looking into Surah Al-Baqarah, or the first user, because we kind of need to understand what it means to ponder and reflect upon the ayahs of the Quran, because the Quran itself is a book of guidance. So, and I'm very keen to talk about the concept of guidance. I'll be looking into ayahs or verses as concepts, not just the meaning of the verse, but as a concept for life, to guide us through things, to guide us through life, to guide us through the challenge that we face in this life. And the main thing that we need to take in consideration is life is too short, and we need to understand where we're heading. We need to understand why we're following the way we're following. We need to understand what it means to be a follower of a specific religion or a specific way of life. And as Muslims, I'm speaking from a Muslim perspective, we need to understand why guidance is important, because and to answer that question, I would say, because if you're not guided, then the whole concept, the whole life that you live is just going to be meaningless, because you are primarily dependent upon guidance, and guidance is the way forward. And من يهده الله فهو المهتد, Allah says, if Allah guides you, whomsoever Allah guides is the one who's guided. So this outlines the fact that it's only those who are guided by the Lord who can follow the right, who can pursue the right path. So in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so the second verse is just saying, this is the book. This book is guidance. That's what it's saying. This is the book. There's no doubt in it, and it's guidance for those who are conscious of God. So, if this book is a guidance, then who are the guided ones? That's the question that that we need to ask. If this book is a guidance, then who are the people who are guided by this book? And then the following verses just outline this: those who believe in God, those who believe in Allah, those who believe in the unseen, which means that you believe in the Day of Judgment, you believe in God. The existence of God is a huge concept. So one of the unseen is God. So we don't see God, but we believe in Him. And when I say Him, I don't necessarily mean that I'm attributing gender to the Lord, but it's a very it's a gender that's used because of the limitation of the language. So we say Him, just because we're limited by the language that we use, but we don't attribute any form of gender to the Creator. So those who believe in the unseen, يؤمنون بالغيب, and then those who establish prayer. So prayer, there's one thing that we need to understand. Prayer in itself is the pillar upon which the whole religion is established. One of the pillars, one of the 5 pillars. But prayer has a huge meaning. When you make the declaration that there's no God but only God, prayer is the daily connection, the continuous connection that you make with the Lord. So you're meant to be, as a person who believes in the Lord, as the person who believes in Allah, you're meant to be in a continuous communication with your Lord. And that communication can take so many different formats. Just walking down the street and you see someone who is in need, supporting that person is another way of communicating with Allah. Being good is another way of communicating with Allah. Supporting someone, or even supporting someone who is related to you, whom you cannot even avoid supporting, is another way of communicating to the Lord. Supporting your parents, your family, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, is another way of communicating to the Lord. But that is a form of communication. Within that, there is a one-to-one form of communication that you have to do. So, for example, if you work in an organization, then you might be communicating to your manager through different formats, emails, texts, blah blah blah. But your manager might say, okay, we have to have a meeting every day at this time, a briefing. Does a phone communication, doesn't it do it? It does, but that briefing, that one-to-one communication is more meaningful than the other forms of communication. And prayers are the same. So communicating to your Lord through prayers, when you pray 5 times a day, that's another way of communicating. And that is also a declaration that you make. As a consequence of that, it's just like you make a declaration that you believe in the Lord, that you are prepared to communicate to Him 5 times a day without even seeing Him. So that just praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be put under the category of believing in the unseen and establishing prayer itself, and then giving charity is so these are the merits of the traits of the people who believe in, who are guided. And then you believe in what the prophets had brought, including the Prophet Muhammad. And then believing that there is going to be life after this life. Believing in tomorrow. Believing in the day of judgment. Believing in the day that we're going to be brought back. After, our bodies will be resurrected. Believing the day of resurrection is another way of is one of the things that those who are guided do firmly believe in. Is one of the traits. And then the verse is complete by saying they are under their Lord's guidance, and they are successful. So if you accomplish this, then as a person, we're talking about that as a person, live alone society, live alone, countries, live alone. This is not a book to guide a country, but this is a book to guide you. It is also a book to guide the whole society, but primarily it's a book to guide you as a person throughout this journey called life. And this life has a meaning, has a purpose, and that purpose is to establish your servitude for Allah on this earth. And to establish that, you need a guidance, and the guidance is from Allah. And then the surah is very interesting how this surah is formulated, especially at the beginning. After showing this, after explaining these traits of the people who are guided, then the surah talks about those who don't believe in the Lord. So if you don't believe in the Lord, then automatically you don't believe in prophethood, you don't believe in prayers, you don't believe in other things that are consequential to believing in the existence of the Lord. The existence of the Lord is the primary thing. If you don't believe that there is a Lord, there's a God, there's a creator, then whatever comes underneath that, like, you know, prophethood, the books, the prayers, charity, everything is comes under the belief on the existence of God. So if you don't believe in the existence of God, then the other things, you're not going to believe in doing the other things. So and in some sense, like those who don't believe, there are so many verses that talk about those who don't believe, and those who claim to believe, yet they don't believe in their heart. So sincerity is important in these actions, as it is in every single action that you do. You have to be sincere. And then there's a verse that talks about those people who don't believe, and then it said like these أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى فما ربحت تجارتهم وما كانوا مهتدين. So أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى. So it explains them. It concludes, these are the people who bought الضلالة, like error, misguidance, bilhuda, with guidance. So you just like exchanging guidance or misguidance with guidance. So instead of you being guided, you just like exchanging it for misguidance. So if you believe in Allah, it's guidance. If you disbelieve in Allah, it's misguidance. And then if we assume that is, you know, that exchange is transaction, and then that transaction is a lost transaction, is unprofitable transaction, and then it says, "Oh my kanu muhtadin," and they're not guided. So not only you are a lost person, you're also misguided, and that's the most important thing. And then the surah goes to talk about, you know, the people. So like, yeah, Yohannas. And then he goes to talk about the surah. From there, it creates a timeline. If these are the two camps that you have, the guided ones and the misguided ones, this is the end result. But let's go back and draw a timeline for you, and so that you can learn from them. Let's tell you a story. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying to us. This is a timeline we're going to draw for you. So you have, as an end result, we have the guided people and you have the misguided people. So if these are the two camps, then how did these two camps come to existence? And then the surah start by making an ask. So it says like, yeah, Yohannas, a call. It says a huge call upon all humanity. So it's not like, you know, the guided, the misguided. So these are the end result. Before we start, we're telling these are the end result, and now we're making a call. All people, that's a call. Worship you, Lord, He who created you and those before you. So this is the call. All people, worship you, Lord. Worship you, Lord. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who created you and those before you. This is the call that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making. And then we start on the timeline how humanity began and how guidance and misguidance came to exist, and then what was the response throughout the throughout the history of humanity, and how prophets struggled, because in the beginning, if you recall, we talked about those who believe in you, in what's been revealed upon you, and those before you, the prophethood. So the surah tells us about Musa alayhi salam, about how the people perceived him, how the people accepted or rejected his call, how was he treated. This is how the timeline that outlines for us. But before then, Adam, the beginning of humanity, and then Musa, and then the surah. There's so many stories that come in the surah later on, but this is like a quick reflection upon the end result. The surah begins with the end result, and it tells us who are the guided people and who are the misguided people, and these two concepts of guidance and misguidance. And then the surah tells us, highlights issues to do with human beings, highlights the problems that human being could face, highlights where the downfalls could be in humans' history, and from there we can learn that people as human beings are always weak, and they should be asking for guidance from the Lord. If you are following a specific path, and you think this path is the path of guidance, then you shouldn't be reluctant to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep you steadfast on this path. Brothers and sisters, this was just a reflection upon guidance, because we need guidance more than ever these days. There's so many problems, there's so many challenges that we're facing, and this challenge that we're facing cannot be overcome without the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not giving us, is not showing us the way, is not when these days, if you're going to travel from one place to another place, all you do is like put your GPS, and it's like start traveling, and that GPS, you're using it to take you from one place to another place, because and you trust that GPS. You trust it so much so that you don't even have a shred of doubt that it's going to take you somewhere else. All you do is just like you put the number, the postcode, and this GPS will take you to that postcode, no matter how far that postcode is, even if it's on the other side of the world. That postcode, that GPS is going to take you to that postcode. It could be hundreds of miles, thousands of miles, but that GPS would definitely take you to that place. If we have that trust on a machine, on a software that was created by a human being, and the possibility of error is there, how can we not have an absolute trust on the Lord, whom created us and the GPS and everything, and the possibility is of him making a mistake is non-existent, because he is the all-knowing. He is the one who knows everything, from the minute cell in your body, from the minute molecule on this earth, to the biggest planets on this universe. So our trust in his guidance should be absolute, and he's the only one who can guide us. And and not having this trust is actually not having the belief in Allah. So you can, if you say I believe in Allah and not having that trust in Him guiding you, then you by default you believe in Him is incomplete, because if you believe in Allah as someone who can guide you, then you should have an absolute trust on Him as well. This is the Twilight chat that we will be doing just after suhoor and before sunrise. It's a quick chat that we reflect upon specific verses from the Quran, or a specific verse maybe, or verses every day, one of the from each juzu, and because today was the second day, but this is just like technically this is the first day or the first juzu that we were contemplating upon. And to just summarize this, we contemplate upon the first 5 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, which talk about guidance and the traits of people who are guided, and also the two concepts of guidance and misguidance, and how they are articulated, and then the timeline of human beings, the timeline of humanity, and the call that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes before beginning the timeline. So ya ayyuhan nasu u'budu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum walladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. All human beings is a call for all human beings, regardless of who you are, regardless of any religion that you call. So the assumption is that as human beings, without having adopted any form of religion or any form of a spiritual connection, as a human being, is a call upon everyone. And then the timeline starts with Adam, Musa, and other prophets, and other incidents that took place. And these stories are not just stories for the sake of telling a story. They are stories for us to learn from throughout the journey that we take, throughout the journey that we make. And when we talk about stories in the Quran, we're not talking about just like random stories. We're talking about stories of people, of prophets, of villages, of cities, of countries that were here before us, and this is their experiences in this life, and what they went through, how they perceived religiosity, how they perceived the prophets, how why they accepted them, why they rejected them. These are stories that guide us through this life. I am going to conclude in here, but just to reiterate the point, I will summarize what I was talking about. So the concept of guidance in the Quran, the first Surah Al-Baqarah, is talking about guidance and the guidance and misguidance, these two concepts. So who are the people who are guided and who are the people who are not guided? So for guidance, all you need primarily is few traits. So the first 5 verses are the verses we talk about people who are guided. What are their merits? What are their traits? How can we know that we guided? So it's just like the very few things. But before that, Allah outlines the fact that this book, talking about the Quran, is a guidance for those who are conscious of Allah. And then there's a full page of people who are misguided, who are not followers of the word of Allah. And then after outlining these two concepts of guidance and misguidance, then the call that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes upon all humanity, and then for people who really looking for guidance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outlines the timeline, draws a timeline starting with Adam and what happened throughout, obviously it's not a timeline that follows specific years and dates, but it's a timeline which outlines the bigger issues, the bigger issue of guidance, the bigger issue of fellowship, the bigger issue of who should we be following and who shouldn't we, and how can we make it through this journey called life to the other end, to our graveyards, to Yawm al-Qiyamah, successfully, without having struggled through this life. When I say without having struggled, obviously life is a struggle, but a struggle with our spiritual journey. The struggle with our spiritual journey shouldn't be there. The existence of God is something that we need to have already established. The fact that guidance is from Allah is something that we need to have established, and establishing these facts, these concepts within us, in our hearts, in our minds, is a very helpful approach to the spiritual journey that we make. Hopefully I was able to kind of pass on some message to you and ponder upon these verses of the Quran. That's all I wanted to say for today. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, and please throw them, and we kind of try to reflect upon them as well, and maybe bring them up if it's necessary to do so, and otherwise I might have to reply to them on the comments section underneath this video. For those of you who joined us late, assalamu alaikum, and jazakallah khair, Namat, and the others who have commented, and have a blessed day if it's a daytime with you, and have a blessed night if it's the night time, and enjoy your Ramadan, make the most of it. It's a very exceptional Ramadan. We haven't had this kind of Ramadan over the past years and years, and we might not have a similar Ramadan. So you are at home anyways. Try to make the most of it. As this kind of Ramadans, with the lifestyle that we're having, especially those of us who live in the West, it's a very hectic lifestyle, and we might not have this kind of Ramadan where we are at home, just fasting and reflecting. So please do make the most of it. Jazakumullah khair. Have a blessed day. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.